The classroom was quiet, almost too quiet. Rows of alien students sat at their desks, floating holographic panels hovering before them. Each species was different. Some had scales, some had feathers, some glowed faintly in the dim light. They were all here to learn the same thing, to become elite officers of the Galactic Federation. At the back of the room, a human sat alone. Jax Harper was not like the others. His hair was messy, his uniform scuffed, and his posture relaxed, almost casual. But there was something in his eyes that made the other students glance away. He had survived worlds where even the toughest creatures would die in minutes. He was a human Deathworlder, forged by harsh planets, endless danger, and constant struggle. A sudden noise shattered the calm. The classroom doors burst open, slamming against the walls. In the doorway stood a figure unlike any student or teacher. It was tall, its limbs thin but fast, and its eyes glowed with a deadly red light. It moved with precision, like it had studied every motion before making it. The alien students froze. The killer stepped into the room, its claws scraping the floor, leaving faint scorch marks. Panic spread immediately. One alien screamed and then another, and soon the room was filled with chaos. Students leapt from their desks, trying to reach the emergency exits. Others tried to fight, their species' special powers flaring, acid sprays, psychic shields, energy blasts. But nothing slowed the killer. Each attack was dodged effortlessly. Jax leaned back in his chair, watching the chaos calmly. He wasn't scared. The human's biology, honed on the deadliest planets, had trained him to face fear and laugh in its face. While everyone else panicked, he studied the killer carefully, noting its patterns, its speed, and its blind spots. The killer's movements were precise, almost mechanical, and it attacked any student who hesitated. One alien telepath tried to read its mind, only to recoil, screaming as the creature sensed the intrusion and struck. Another shapeshifter morphed into a larger form to intimidate it, but the killer simply leapt aside and snapped a tentacle-like limb in their direction. The other students turned to Jax in desperation. "Do something!" they shouted. Jax laughed. It was not a loud laugh, just a low chuckle that somehow cut through the fear in the room. The sound made the killer pause, tilting its head. It had never faced a creature that reacted this way, so calm, so fearless, so unafraid. The alien killer had been built to eliminate, to strike fear, to crush resistance. But humans did not respond in expected ways. Jax stood slowly, his movements deliberate. He didn't run. He didn't panic. He simply observed. "You're fast," he said aloud, his voice calm. "But you're predictable," the killer hissed and lunged at him. Jax sidestepped in a blur, his reflexes honed from years on worlds where a wrong move meant death. He laughed again, louder this time, and it echoed strangely in the room. The alien students stared in disbelief. They had never heard a human react like this. Fear was instinctive, a part of every species' survival mechanism, but not for Jax. He looked around. The classroom was full of tools, gadgets, and floating panels. He could use them as weapons if needed. But for now he wanted to understand his opponent. The killer moved again, fast and precise, aiming for the nearest alien. Jax pushed a desk in its path. The creature's momentum carried it forward, but it stumbled slightly. Just enough. Another student tried to attack with a beam of concentrated energy. Jax caught it in midair with his hand. The energy fizzled harmlessly, absorbed by his quick improvisation. "See," he said with a grin. "You can't scare me," the other students whispered among themselves. Some were horrified. Some were inspired. They watched as Jax did what no one else dared to do. He faced the creature head-on. No shields, no psychic barriers, no weapons. Just his mind, his body, and his unshakable courage. The killer hissed again. It had killed before countless times. But humans were different. They did not respond with fear, confusion, or retreat. They adapted. They improvised. And this one human was not just surviving. He was taunting it. The doors of the classroom slid open again, and a few instructors tried to enter. They were powerful beings trained to fight in galactic wars, but even they hesitated. The killer turned to them, ready to strike, but Jax stepped between them and the creature. He laughed again, loud and confident, a sound filled with the kind of calm that only comes from surviving the impossible. The alien killer paused. It did not understand. Its instincts told it that this human should be afraid, should scream, should run. But he did none of these things. Instead, he smiled. He laughed. And that was dangerous for the killer. Jax noticed a pattern. Every time the creature lunged, it overextended slightly. Its strikes were precise but predictable. Its speed was its strength, but also its weakness. And Jax knew what he had to do. He didn't need a weapon. He needed patience, timing, and courage. He moved closer. The killer hissed and prepared to strike. Jax laughed once more, loud enough to make the students jump. "You don't know humans," he said calmly. "And you're about to find out why." The classroom fell into tense silence. Even the other students stopped moving, watching him. The killer lunged faster than anyone could follow, and Jax, with a smirk, dodged effortlessly. This was not the end. It was just the beginning. The human Deathworlder had faced worse. The alien killer had no idea what it had stepped into, and for the first time the students realized humans were not to be underestimated. The fight had begun, but one thing was already clear. In this classroom, the human was not afraid. He was ready, and he was laughing. The classroom had become a battlefield. Desks were overturned, holographic panels flickered wildly, and sparks flew from damaged machinery. Alien students cowered in corners, watching in terror as the killer advanced with deadly precision. But in the middle of it all, Jax Harper, the human Deathworlder, stood calmly, a grin on his face. He moved with the confidence of someone who had faced far worse than this. On his homeworld, he had fought beasts larger than this killer, survived storms that would have torn through entire cities, and navigated deserts where water meant life or death. To him, this creature was just another challenge. The killer lunged at him again, claws extended, teeth glinting in the dim light. Jax sidestepped, ducked under a strike, and grabbed a loose panel from the floor. With a swift motion, he swung it toward the creature, not to harm, but to test its reflexes. The panel hit its arm, and the killer hissed in frustration. Its strikes became less precise, more predictable. "Finally," Jax said with a laugh. "A little mistake. That's all I need," the alien students gasped. None of them had ever seen a human react this way. Their instincts told them to flee, to hide, to panic. Jax did none of that. He moved closer, drawing the creature's attention, forcing it to commit to each attack. A telepathic student tried to warn him, projecting a mental image of the creature's next move. But Jax shook his head. "No need," he said. "I've seen worse." The killer lunged again, faster this time, but Jax was ready. He ducked low, rolled across the floor, and used a floating desk as a springboard, flipping over the creature's head. His laughter echoed across the room, strange and unnerving to the alien students. They had never heard anyone laugh in the face of death like this. "You see," Jax said, "humans survive. Humans adapt, and humans don't panic." He began using the classroom itself as a weapon. Holographic panels became shields, chairs became barriers, and loose machinery distracted the killer. Each move was precise, tactical, and entirely human. The other students watched, fascinated and terrified. Some whispered to each other, "How can he do this? No one survives like that." One of the instructors, a towering alien with crystalline skin, tried to intervene. The killer turned toward the instructor, ready to attack. But Jax stepped forward, placing himself between them. "Stay back," he said calmly. "I've got this." The instructor hesitated. Jax's fearless stance and calm demeanor were unusual even for humans. It was the combination of instinct, training, and sheer audacity that made him extraordinary. The killer hissed, lunging again. This time Jax was ready. He sidestepped, grabbed a floating panel, and slammed it down in front of the creature. The panel created a barrier, and the killer hit it head-on, stumbling slightly. That moment of imbalance was all Jax needed. He moved in close, dodging a strike, and tapped the creature's side with a precise push. The killer twitched, surprised by the audacity. It had killed countless beings before, but humans were unpredictable. They didn't respond like any other species. Jax laughed again, a low, confident sound. "I told you," he said. "You can't scare me," the alien students murmured in amazement. Some began to cheer quietly, inspired by Jax's bravery. They realized something important. Humans were not just strong or fast, they were fearless, adaptable, and capable of improvisation that no other species could match. The killer hissed and spun, claws swinging wildly. Jax ducked, rolled, and used a holographic projector as a distraction. The light confused the creature for a moment, and Jax seized the chance. He grabbed a heavy desk and pushed it toward the killer. It collided with the creature, sending it stumbling backward. "You see?" Jax said, panting lightly. "You can't win by strength alone. Humans think. Humans adapt." The killer growled, frustration clear in its movements. It lunged faster, more recklessly. Jack sidestepped, ducked under another strike, and kicked the creature's leg, unbalancing it further. Each movement was calculated, precise, and fearless. The other students began to take notice. Some tried to mimic Jack's, using their powers with more strategy rather than panic. One alien used telekinesis to lift debris and block attacks. Another used shape-shifting to confuse the killer. Jax nodded approvingly. "Good. Use your head, not just your strength," he said. The creature hissed, spinning in a circle, claws extended, but Jax had already anticipated it. He ducked low, rolled under a strike, and grabbed a loose cable from the floor. Swinging it like a whip, he tripped the killer, sending it sprawling to the ground. For the first time, the creature hesitated. It had never been bested like this. Its instincts told it to strike again, but its mind couldn't process a being that laughed while facing death. Jax walked slowly toward it, his movements calm, deliberate. "Humans don't give up," he said. "Humans survive, and humans always find a way." The alien students stared in awe. Some whispered to each other. "He's not just strong, he's unstoppable. He's human." The killer lunged one last time, faster than ever. Jax dodged easily, flipped over it, and landed behind it. He didn't strike to kill. He simply held it in place, using its momentum against it. The creature struggled, hissing and snapping, but it could not move past him. Jax laughed again, a sound full of confidence and calm. "You see," he said, "humans laugh at death. Humans adapt, and humans always survive." The classroom was silent now, except for the creature's hissing and Jax's steady breathing. The alien students slowly emerged from hiding, their eyes wide with amazement. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a human Deathworlder facing a deadly predator with no fear, no panic, and complete control. It was more than physical skill. It was courage, intelligence, and adaptability, qualities that no alien could fully understand. Jax Harper had proven that humans were not to be underestimated. The killer glared at him, its red eyes glowing brightly. But for the first time it hesitated. Jax had turned the fight into a lesson, showing that fear was not universal, and that humans had evolved to thrive in situations where others would fail. And Jax smiled, knowing that the battle was not over, but he had already won in the most important way. He had shown everyone in that classroom what it meant to be a human Deathworlder. The classroom was in ruins. Desks were shattered, holographic panels flickered and sparked, and the air smelled faintly of scorched metal. Alien students slowly stepped out of hiding, their eyes wide, still trying to process what they had just witnessed. At the center of the chaos stood Jax Harper, calm, confident, and smiling lightly, as if he had simply finished a difficult exercise rather than faced a deadly killer. The alien predator lay on the floor, breathing heavily, its red eyes glinting with frustration. For the first time it had met a being it could not terrify or overpower. Its strikes had been dodged, its attacks outmaneuvered, and its every move countered. And yet Jax had not killed it. Humans, he believed, did not always need to end life to prove their strength. Sometimes survival and ingenuity alone were enough. Jax crouched down slightly, studying the creature. "You're fast," he said softly. "But speed alone doesn't win. Intelligence and courage matter too." The killer hissed, but it did not attack. It was confused, wary, and for once cautious. The alien students slowly began to gather around, murmuring among themselves. They had never seen anything like this before. Their species prided themselves on strength, speed, psychic powers, and deadly instincts. But humans were different. Humans could face death without flinching, adapt instantly to impossible situations, and improvise solutions where no one else could. One student whispered, He laughed at it. He laughed while it attacked him. Another added, "And he survived, without even a weapon." Jack stood straight, brushing dust off his uniform. "Humans survive because we have to," he said. "We face worlds where everything is trying to kill us. We adapt, we endure. We fight back even when it seems impossible." The instructors, who had been watching from the doorway, finally entered. Their expressions were a mixture of disbelief and respect. The largest among them, a crystalline-skinned officer, stepped forward. "Jax Harper," he said, his voice deep and resonant. "You have proven something extraordinary today. Not just skill, but resilience, courage, and intelligence. These are traits we rarely see combined in a single being." Jax shrugged modestly. "I just do what I've always done. Stay alive. Adapt. Laugh when you can. The alien students watched closely as the instructors examined the defeated killer. They realized that humans were not just another species in the galaxy. They were exceptional, not because of raw strength alone, but because humans thrived under extreme pressure, could think creatively in life or death situations, and never gave up no matter the odds. One of the students, a young telepath, hesitated before asking, Do humans always fight like that? Jack smiled. Not always, but when it matters, yes. Humans survive. That's what we do best. The classroom, once a place of panic and fear, now felt different. There was a sense of awe in the air. Alien students who had cowered moments ago were now inspired. They looked at Jax and realized that courage was not just about strength or powers. It was about mindset. Humans had a mindset that could not be broken by fear, by terror, or by creatures that others thought unstoppable. Jax walked slowly toward the center of the room, surveying the damage. Take notes, he said lightly to the students. This is what happens when you panic. And this, he gestured to himself, is what happens when you face danger without fear. The instructors nodded in agreement. One of them said, This lesson will be remembered. You have set a standard, human, not just for students, but for the entire academy. Jax looked around at the alien students. Some were still scared. Others were amazed, and a few even tried to smile. Remember this, he said. Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about facing what terrifies you and moving forward anyway. Humans learned that the hard way. You can too if you try. The killer, still on the floor, hissed weakly, but it no longer moved aggressively. Jax had taught it a lesson it would never forget. Humans could not be intimidated, and underestimating them was a grave mistake. As the academy staff began to repair the classroom, students approached Jax cautiously, asking questions. How had he predicted the killer's moves? How had he stayed calm while everyone else panicked? How could one being survive against such a deadly predator? Jax answered simply, I didn't do anything special. I just stayed alive. I watched, I waited, and I laughed when fear came near. That's what humans do. We survive. By the end of the day, the legend of the human Deathworlder spread throughout the academy. Alien students whispered stories about his bravery, his intelligence, and his fearlessness. Some vowed to learn from him. Others simply respected the human in silence. Instructors officially recorded the incident as an example of human capability. Humans were now recognized not just as another species, but as beings with unique survival instincts, creativity, and courage that could rival even the most advanced alien training programs. Jax left the classroom finally, his uniform slightly torn, his boots scuffed, and a small grin on his face. The students and instructors watched him go, knowing they had witnessed something extraordinary. A single human had faced a deadly predator, and not only survived but taught everyone in the room an important lesson. Underestimating humans was a mistake. The academy would never be the same. The aliens had learned a truth that was hard to deny. Humans were not just tough, they were exceptional. They could thrive in conditions no other species could survive. Think creatively when all seemed lost, and laugh in the face of danger. And Jax? He simply shrugged, as humans always do, and continued on his way. Because to a human Deathworlder, survival wasn't about glory. It was about living, adapting, and proving time and again that humans were extraordinary.